Hello, and this is Hanratty on Karate, and this week we have a special guest, Robert Hargreaves from the Spruce Grove Karate Club, formerly of the Fort McMurray Karate Club. So we're just going to chat with Robert about some experiences we've had together over the years with regards to the clubs and traveling, particularly traveling over 2001, 9/11, when we were in Prague. Hello, Robert. How are you?
Hi, John. I'm really good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm still here, thankfully. I just wanted to ask you, Robert, if you could perhaps give people a little background on your history. I know at present you're president of Canadian Shotokan Karate Association. Like, I'm the technical side of it and you're more the admin side of it, but we do share some common duties. However, what I'd like you to do is maybe give a little bit of background about your karate history.
Yeah, for sure. Be happy to. I first started karate and got interested in karate in about 1973. I was 13, I guess, maybe going on 14, 19, and I was already aware of karate and martial arts, but then Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon came out, and I saw that, and that, give me the idea. I got to find a karate club because this looks great, and so we were in just outside of Preston, Lancashire, in England at the time, not too far away from where you were, and found a local karate club. Unbeknownst to me at the time, it was actually run by a couple of purple belts who were a year ahead of me in school. So that was cool. And another kid was a neighbor, and I didn't know that they practiced. But anyway, so I joined that club, and they were under Kato Sensei at that time, who just before that, or at that time, was with Anoida Sensei out of Liverpool. And anyway, shortly he left, Kato left and formed his own organization.
Yes, I remember Kato. Unfortunately, he passed away just a year or two ago.
Yeah. And also Asano. I might have met Asano Sensei. I think they were good friends.
Asano was under Kanazawa and based at Sheffield, I believe.
Yeah. Anyway, we were farmers back in the UK, and I was just a young guy and had lots of work to do on the farm. But I snuck out and I found my way to the karate club a couple of times a week. I remember it was a bit of a long walk, a couple of miles, and we used to train on the floor of an old church, which was great wood flooring, but we had to clear away the pews and get changed in the anteroom and then come out on the floor and away we went. So that was great. Yeah, so that had been 1973. I took a couple of gradings there, and I remember catching a bus. It must have been a Saturday or a Sunday, catching a bus with a group of us, went to Gisborne. Do you know where Gisborne is, right?
Yeah.
Little village, surprise, surprise, but there was a huge, what seemed to me at the time, a huge gym. And the senseis were up front behind tables. And I don't know, there was probably 20 of us all doing the grading at the same time. And I did that a couple of times, as I remember. And we didn't get belts. We did have a red passbook. I don't know what's happened to that. That's been a long time ago now. Probably got lost in the move to Canada. But anyway, 1975, we emigrated to Canada, to the Edmonton area, St. Albert. And I looked around and tried to find a karate club here, couldn't find one. At the same time, I just graduated school in England, I had to get a job, didn't have anything but, 3 GCEs and some CSEs. But anyway, found work in an engineering office doing technical drawing, which I really, really loved back in school. So that went well. Anyway, couldn't find a karate club. But then I heard in the newspaper, or read in the newspaper, that this guy was starting karate classes just down the street in St. Albert. I thought, okay, well, I'll jump in. So this guy had a gray gi on and a black belt, and he was Romanian, I think. And, great guy. But it was, a bit of mix of just do everything every night. And I asked him about kata, and he said, oh, we don't do kata. And I'm going, oh, well,
Sounds like a club.
I said, and I loved kata, back in Shotokan, and I loved the whole way that we did our training. So anyway, I stayed with him for a while. I probably did a couple of gradings there, but it just wasn't what I was looking for. And then I was advancing in my career and then got married, had kids, moved to Fort McMurray, which is 4.5 hours north of Edmonton, and raised a family there. But when those kids, got about 8 or 9 or so, we joined a karate club. And that's kind of where I met you in around 1996.
I
And
thought you were earlier than that. Like I remember starting that club in Fort Mac in '83.
yeah,
I thought you'd come in a little earlier than that, but hey, my memory's going as
well, between us, our memories probably not the greatest, but yeah, I think it was mid 90s, and the club, as you said in your previous podcast, had been amalgamated into one. There was one black belt there, and a couple of green belts and purple belts, and then a whole whack of kids, at various low Q grades.
right.
So we started training with them. The black belt left shortly after and left town, and we just continued on. Shortly after that, met you. You came up for a seminar and a grading, and that was if I thought the Shotokan karate training that I did before meeting you was good, that when you came up, that was exactly what I was looking for. It's exactly what I remember from back in the UK, and what kind of attracted me to our style of karate. So, and since then, there's been many, many, many training sessions and seminars and travels. So I was in Fort McMurray. A couple of us took over the club, and we kept it going, and it's still going today. In 2015, I retired from Syncrude, and shortly after moved down here, just outside of Edmonton, and started our karate club here. It'll be 10 years next year with this karate club.
So it's been a good club. Yeah, I remember a couple of instructors I kind of put in charge in Fort McMurray. I remember building the dojo for them at one stage over by the river.
Yeah.
I was kind of sad when they let it go. It was a very good organization. I think you and Paul Walgamuth split the instructing duties between you, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and I
correct.
think
And
before
Paul,
it was Tim Martin and Don Keenan.
yeah.
There was somebody else before that, but I can't remember. I know I took a few people up there for visits on seminars, like Ray Dalkey went up there and visited
Yeah.
you.
Ed Otis came up.
I think I took Yasu Sakurai from Vancouver up there at one time. Yeah, it was a good club, and it's still a good club, still quite a strong club.
Yeah. We had it good. We had it good in those days. We had our own space, nice dojo, and that was kind of, just before the boom hit in, with the oil. And once that hit and the city started expanding, the lease costs just went skyrocketing, and we couldn't do it anymore.
But you always had a good financial setup there. I remember setting up, fundraising through the government and stuff like that. And
oh boy, yeah, we did casinos, we did bingos, and early on in the bingos they could smoke in the bingo hall in the casino, and not the best, not the best for karate people, but yeah, we raised money there, and that helped us.
Things you do to survive, eh?
Yeah, I remember in the bingo hall, each association had a plaque, and it was a big, about 3-foot diameter with our emblem on it.
Yeah.
And when then they shut down the bingo many, many years later. And so I took the plaque down, and it just crumbled in my hands because it was just exposed to secondhand smoke for that long.
Yeah, we did the same thing. So anyway, what I wanted to do is ask you, I've been doing little segments on the different WSKA competitions since I started in 91. And actually, in 91, I remember Fort McMurray sent 2 busloads of people down to watch the finals that I put on here at the university. It was a great success, and not a little of it was due to the support that I got from the Fort Mac people. So I was grateful for that.
Yeah.
Now, I remember you started to coach, I'm not sure when. I was doing more of the vice presidential duties at the WSKA events. So I think you probably came in maybe 97, 99. Were you down in California? I can't really remember.
Yeah. it would be 99, 2000. We all went to California, to Riverside, California, right?
Yes.
Carlsbad
Yeah.
area.
Yeah.
We also did camps down at the military academy down there in summer as well. Went to a few of those with you.
Yeah, that was a little later on, I think.
Yeah.
What I wanted to, reminisce or chat about today was the 2001 Worcester
Prague.
Olympics in Prague.
Yeah.
Now, I went over there as VP, and
Yeah.
I believe you were one of the coaches for me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And we took about 24 people over, something
It
like
was a
that.
it was a big group. Yeah, a lot of probably 18 or 16 or 18 of those were competitors, and then we had some coaches and team manager, etc. All the folks that could help out, and with a big group
All the
like that.
support staff, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So I remember at that time, Czech Republic, I'm not sure if it was split Slovakia then.
It was Czech Republic at that time. Yeah,
Yeah, Czech Republic, they went in the EU, and I remember we had a bit of a problem running around getting visas for everybody, much the same as we did in '99 going to Russia. Like the Czech visas weren't that much, but it was kind of nice seeing them in the passports. So
yes.
from what I remember, I thought Prague was a wonderful city. I don't know
Oh,
your views of it.
fantastic. And what we do, I mean, this is largely you organizing it, but for the folks out there, when we take these trips, we make it into an experience, not just for the karate, but we explore the cities and we look at the culture and we, kind of maybe even sometimes get off the beaten path, but it's an educational adventure regardless of how old you are. And Prague was wonderful, absolutely fantastic city. Great food, great people. We stayed out in the suburbs, remember?
Yes.
Quite rustic accommodations, but it was all fun. And we'd train out in the back like there was a common area of grass. We'd train, before the competition there, and take the metro downtown and then out to the competition.
I remember the metro was still the old Russian model, and
yeah.
it was dirt cheap. I do remember that. Yeah, I thought Prague was wonderful, and that was the first time that Malcolm Dorfman showed up with his South African team. I'd known Malcolm for a long time. I trained with him in California in the 80s.
Yeah.
His boy was just a little kid. Of course, he got bigger and eventually ended up as world champion. They still do fantastic karate, Malcolm.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. We all went off on a sightseeing tour. I believe we hired a guide. And
we did. Karel, I still remember his name, and he carried an umbrella.
One of the nicest people I've ever met.
Yeah. We also had a female tour guide as well. They were fantastic, and these people, they have to have university degrees to be able, in history, arts, and history to be able to do this.
They had to take a test, didn't they?
Yeah. They're not just, and he took us everywhere and took us through the castle, the cathedrals, the malls, everywhere.
Boat trip on the river, didn't we?
Yeah. And some of the younger guys, was it Shay, kind of slept through the whole thing. He was so tired.
Yeah, we had a good group there. So I was getting to the competition. The competition was actually very, very good. And meeting up with a lot of my old buddies from the KUGB, particularly the Welsh and the Scottish teams, we had a good laugh with them.
Yeah.
And if I remember rightly, our junior team took silver there in the Kumite, so they did very well.
Team Kumite, yeah, they did. Yeah. And I think, John, if I remember rightly, that was the last WSKA where there was no hand protection.
There was no pads, you're right.
There was none.
They started to look at bringing pads in. So that was the last one where it was all bare fist. And I remember I got re-elected as vice president that year as well.
Yeah.
So, you did a lot of the coaching. But I think we also got bronze in kata for the juniors. I know we had a good little team then. And some of those kids worked really hard.
Yeah.
So after the competition, which is exceptional, it's some of the best tournament karate you'll ever see in WSKA at that time, probably peaked between there and maybe 2011 is my opinion. But after the competition, we all flew out and we decided we'd take 2 days in London, if I remember.
Yeah.
And I booked a hotel, economy type hotel, in the Cromwell Road for everybody.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
So when we got there, the young guys wanted to do the big red bus tour, but
Yeah.
you and I both coming from the UK weren't into that. So we
Yeah.
decided we'd just go downtown, have a pint, and
Well, there's three of us as couples, I think, right? Right, wasn't
yeah,
there?
they split up into couples, but quite a few of the young guys stayed together on that.
Yes, they did. They were a group, but yeah, and then yeah, I think as older couples, we
Yeah.
said, well, we're gonna go find somewhere for lunch and a pint, and
So the big event was, if I remember rightly, we were down by the cenotaph, right?
yeah, yeah, Whitehall,
Yeah, just
yeah,
down the
yeah,
street in Whitehall. And
yeah,
we decided to pop into a pub for a pint. It would have been
yeah,
just after lunchtime, if I
yeah.
remember.
I remember I said, well, I'll go check this pub out, and I went ahead a little bit and went in the pub, and I got in there, and everybody's looking at these tiny TV screens up on
Yes.
the wall, and I'm going, oh, it must be football, but it was strange because it was like a Tuesday or something.
Yeah.
It was midweek. And what had happened is they'd shown the first plane had just gone into the towers,
Right.
and all these people were standing up, and it was dead silent, dead silent.
I
And
remember
after
we
that,
came
I
in
said,
about 2 minutes after you.
yeah,
I thought
yeah,
everybody was watching a film on the telly.
yeah.
I
I
couldn't
said,
believe it. And then we found out that there was a terrorist attack and they were firing planes in.
yeah,
So that was all the information we had at that time. So we come out, and as we come out, I remember looking up and I saw a plane go over the House of Parliament. And then I thought, yeah, of course they do, because that's the flight path into Heathrow.
yeah,
So I thought, well, we're not very safe here. And I remember saying to you, Robert, I think we should walk further on up
exactly, yeah,
the city centre.
yeah.
And I can't remember how far up we walked, but we did. And we came across towards the financial district, I think. And we came across that chap sitting on the sidewalk crying, remember?
Oh, I remember he had his briefcase in his hands,
Yeah.
and he was just stood still. He was riveted, and he was crying, and he would look up every once in a while, and the look on his face was just, what's going on? What's going on? And I think he was an American, wasn't he, John?
He was,
I don't know.
when we got hold of him, because he looked like he was going to walk
Yeah,
out into the road or something.
yeah,
And we asked him what was wrong. And I guess he said he'd been on the phone to his friend in the towers, in the financial district, in the Twin Towers, and plane went in. And all he got on the phone was screaming
hmm,
and then it went dead.
yeah,
And then he got the news on the TV, because
yeah,
this was about maybe 45 minutes after, because
yeah,
we'd walked all the way out of the city centre.
yeah,
And so I remember we took him into a pub, gave him a brandy, and, kind
yeah.
of set him down there.
And remember, about that time is when, the police cars and the police motorbikes
Oh, they were everywhere,
started
yeah.
everywhere, screaming down roads, and we headed back to where we were
We went
staying.
back to the hotel and we'd found out that they'd stopped all transport in London,
Yeah,
tube, everything.
yeah.
And so we waited there for a few hours, and eventually all the youngsters came back. They'd walk back. They stopped the tour buses, and everybody had to get off and walk
In
back.
the days before cell phones, by the way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
nobody
yeah,
had cell phones. Yeah,
yeah,
so they came back, and we got together. And I remember what I did was I said, "Okay, we're going to have to discuss what we want to do here."
yeah,
So I booked a restaurant just over the road
yeah,
to
yeah,
take us all in. Remember, it was an Italian restaurant.
yeah. Down in the cellar, and it was all
Yeah.
brick. Yeah,
We
yeah,
fitted
really.
22 of us in, I think, 22
Yeah,
or
yeah.
24. And we all decided what we were going to do, because there was no flights anywhere. There was nothing. And so
And we couldn't get through to Air Canada. The
no,
phones were
couldn't
phones
get
were
through to
busy.
anybody. You
We
couldn't.
couldn't get any information. Whatever was on the news was, it was.
But all flights had been stopped into North
Yeah,
America.
yeah,
All transport was stopped in London, all
yeah,
transport, which was kind of strange. But
yeah,
I think they didn't know if they were going to get an attack or what. But what we decided was, I said, you have two options. You can all go to the airport and see when you're going to get a flight, or you can make arrangements to stay here until things get sorted out, or you can go somewhere else. Now, a couple of them had relatives. I remember Peter went back to Scotland. He was,
Scotland, and he took a couple of the BC guys with
yeah,
him, right? Yeah,
couple of the BC guys went to Scotland, and I went round. I know our juniors and you and Paul and a couple of other adults said you would prefer to go to the airport and try to get a flight because you guys had work or something.
Well, yeah, and we all had families back home, but also what was happening is, the city itself was just, it was getting busier and busier and more stressful than the people themselves in the city because they didn't know if London was going to get it. But if we were going to get out and we were due to fly out the next day,
Yeah.
Let's get to the airport. Worst comes to worst, we'll be there for 12 hours maybe, and then we'll get on our flight. And so, yeah, so that's what we decided to do.
So,
And
do you want to maybe just chat about what happened to you guys at the airport?
yeah, yeah. So we gathered up our stuff and we took, and then we call them juniors, but they're like the youngest would have been 16, and between 16 and 18 is what we're calling juniors.
Yeah.
And most, then there was 18 plus, university kids and then adults. So anyway, we decided that, yeah, okay, we'll go to the airport and we'll get a hold of Air Canada there, and we'll see what the plan is, what their plan is. So we did that. We gathered up our stuff. We made our way there. I can't remember how we get there now, but maybe a cab. I don't know, maybe cabs. Anyway, we get there. Absolutely packed, bustling, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
We found a spot. We settled down. A couple of us went up to the ticket counters, at Air Canada, and eventually got to the front. And they said, "Oh, well, your flight is due at 6 a.m. You'll be on it." Yeah, no problem. Yeah, this is just temporary. You'll be on it. And we thought, okay, well, great. We can stay here. We can find a spot. I think we even checked our baggage. They even took our baggage. We got ourselves comfortable. We actually spent the night in the airport on the marble floors. All the seats, everything was just covered with kids and families. They'd bedded down and they'd sorted themselves out. And so we spent the night there. It was okay. It is what you make of it.
Yeah.
And then the next morning, we went back to the ticket counter about 4:00, and they said, "Oh, it's been delayed a couple hours." So this delayed a couple hours, delayed 4 hours, went on for what turned out to be the rest of that day. And we were kind of stuck there. There was no hotels to be had. There's no way out of there. We were stuck. And but we fully expected later that day to get out. But a couple of things, and it happened that we spent 1, 2, maybe 3 nights there before we did get out. But what had happened, that our group was fantastic, as well as I don't remember anybody going sideways in the whole airport. Like, people were just resigned to the fact that this is where I am. This is what's happening. I'm going to make, the best of it, right? May not like it, but we'll make the best of it. And a couple of highlights stood out for me with our group. We camped outside of a convenience store, like a newsagent's store in the terminal, and around the corner was washrooms. So we were well suited. And this young fellow came out with a plastic shopping bag full of chocolates and snacks and things. And he came over to me. A lot of our kids were wearing their Canada jackets. And he said, my dad and my granddad said that, the Canadians, rescued them in the Second World War. And he said, so obviously he was from Holland. He said, I had to do something. He said, I can't do anything but give you this. And it was all this bag of stuff. And we were very grateful for that. And, not only for the stuff, but more so for the act, for him. Yes. Being compelled to do that. And so that was good, which reminds me, by the way, of when we were in Prague and we were walking across the front of the river. And again, our kids were wearing the Canada jackets, and this older couple ran up to them and started hugging them and saying, "Oh, thank you for the war. Thank you for the war," And so,
yeah, I remember that because the chap remarked to me, maybe these kids don't know what it means, but
yeah.
Our village, our town was liberated during the by Canadian battalions, and they never forgot how grateful they were for that to happen.
What an experience for our kids, for our people, right? What an experience. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And
So,
anyway, getting back to the airport.
say, didn't you get some help from the Canadian consul as well?
Well, we did. There was one other event, one other thing that kind of showed you, kind of in every situation, there's opportunities and there's silver linings, if you will. We had these 16, 18-year-olds, and I looked around, and there they were on the floor playing chess with these Jewish kids, with the black hats and the long. Yeah, they were just playing chess for hours, and I thought, man, that's just amazing. It's fantastic. Yeah. So those were. Oh, and another one is a local shopkeeper brought in a trolley, and not, like with four wheels, it was like about 4 feet by 2.5 feet, wheeled it in, and it was just stacked out with sandwiches and drinks and stuff that they, took off the shelves of the shop, and felt that him and his two daughters, if I remember rightly, and, they just felt that
just wonderful people, huh?
Yeah. And again, for us, to be able to see that, humanity and, and how people come together in times of crisis, it's what a life lesson. But anyway, eventually it must have been at least the second day, if not the third day, before we were going to fly out. And again, this 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours delay, just kept going on. That was the most frustrating thing, because you just couldn't get a straight answer. But anyway, the Canadian consulate came and talked to us, and we hadn't showered, and we hadn't really changed clothes, and they gave us passes to the executive facilities, like what do you call it, lounges, yeah. And so we thought, oh, this will be great, we'll go have a shower. Well, this was like the Ritz. It was fantastic. It was amazing. You could have stayed in there for a day, just under the shower in this big marble bathroom, and that was good. And somehow they arranged for us to be able to call Canada. Right. And so we got, the younger people, members of our team, for sure, to get them to call home and let folks know as soon as they could that everything was okay. And we were expected to leave the next day or so. And we were all able to call our families, because there was just no other way of getting a hold of them. So eventually we got on the flight, absolutely packed. Yeah. And we took off, we got to cruising speed, and it came over the announcement, the cabin crew came over the announcement and said, we'd like to congratulate, this couple. They just got married and they were on their honeymoon. But and then secondly, we have the Canadian karate team on board. They're very successful outing in Prague. They came back with a silver and a bronze medal for Canada. And again, the whole plane erupted in applause, and it was amazing.
Fantastic experience for the kids.
Yeah.
I'm glad we were always able to provide those kind of experience, because, I've said many times that there's nothing as educational as travel. And, we've done a few trips to Japan now, and hoping we'll go back again next year. We missed a year. But the people that we took last time we went to Japan had a fantastic time. And I remember when the next WSKA competition, which maybe we'll get to in our next podcast, was in Zurich. We had some memorable moments there as well. But thanks for sharing your memories of that, Robert. It was really good to reminisce and just remember all the things that we did go through, what the team went through, and just what people go through for karate. But what comes out of that, to me, is the resilience that karate builds into you. And you don't panic, you don't flap, you come
directly relatable. And we make sure that, as you do in your classes, not all the time, but you'll, especially again to kids, you'll say, look, it's going to be noisy in here, it's going to be fast paced, you're going to be under pressure. What you have to do is, you just have to relax, you have to breathe deep, you have to get your head up, get your back straight, and push through it, because that's what exactly will get through life. And it's true. It's true. I remember one thing before we maybe close off is, remember when we got back, there was a couple of newspaper articles out of 2 newspapers in Calgary that said that these kids had been abandoned in London and the adults had all taken off and stuff like this. And that
was out and out lies. That was just sensational.
So,
there was more adults than kids actually in the park.
It was, yeah. But it was interesting because shortly before we'd gone to WSKA, I'd taken this course in critical thinking and reasoning. One of the things you had to do was take newspaper articles and then pull out the arguments and then challenge the premises and break them down. And so I put that to good use. And
yeah, but it's a pity more people do that.
Got back to these newspapers, and one printed a retraction and the other one said, well, we can only print what we're told. I said, well, I'm telling you, so you may want to print it, but they didn't.
That was good. That was good. Okay, Robert. Well, it's been a lot of fun talking to you. I know I'm going to be talking to you again. You're only, 300 kilometers away, so which is nothing in Canada.
Nothing in Canada.
Practically neighbors.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you. Thanks for your time, and thank you everybody for listening. If you have any comments, and I know everybody went through a traumatic time at 9/11, so just a few little memories that we had, and I honestly think that it built a lot of character, built a lot of resilience, and it showed you what you can get out of karate for your mind, for strength, for emotional needs. So once again, thanks, Robert, and thank you, everybody, for listening, and we'll talk to you in a little while.
Thank you, John. Pleasure as always. Take care.